I can't clap, Ben.
Oh, that's a good one.
Sorry, I do my best. All right, well, fantastic. Hey, y'all, welcome to Commerce Central, where we talk all things business in Lawrence County. This is Ryan Egley with the Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce, and today I am with Mr. Jason Shelton with Loreto Telecom, a SkyBest company, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. But welcome.
Thank you. I actually have a script that. So, my name is Jason. I am the G.
No, we are not doing this today. Listen, we do have we have a format here, right? But no, so
He told me the other day, he said, okay, I'm going to tell you, but I'm not going to tell Ryan. I have a full-blown script. I'm going to read word for word, see what he says.
no, I was about to be like, all right, well, I'm done. No, that's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. No, so Jason is he's a good guy.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, you've been a huge supporter of the Chamber, all things economic development in Lawrence County for the duration you've been here, which is now
3 years actually in October.
3 years. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
It does. I say it all the time actually at the office. It's only been 3 years, but it feels like 30.
Well, it was between the global pandemic and the speed at which you do business.
Right.
I mean, it's been really unreal. But tell us about where you came from to start.
So I've been in the telecom industry since I got out of the Marine Corps back in 1990, or actually 2000. And I started out as a technician working for Nextel, if you remember the push-to-talk walkie-talkie days.
Man, that was a throwback.
Yeah. It's decade school at school today, so But I started as a tech and actually worked as part of building the North and South Carolina markets in a central office type of environment, and just kind of worked my way through the company there, and eventually went to work for a top 5 telco in the West, and eventually made my way up to New York. We moved here from New York, and I was running a family-owned telco there. And had the opportunity to come and take a look at what was going on down here. And ironically, and I said this even when I got here, that it was really important to be able to go to an area that was going to be able to use the type of network that I knew I wanted to build. Yep. And so I was able to see from afar, before I even stepped foot in Tennessee or Lawrence County, that the chamber here was really active and looking to be able to increase its overall economic diversity and that sort of thing. So.
Oh yeah, no. So with that in mind, I mean, you coming from a family-owned telco, and for those watching, a telco is a
telecommunications company.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Telecommunications company, and the chamber was started, decades ago. I think we're coming up on 70 years. But part of that was actually Loreto Telecom, being part of trying to drive that progress. Now, Loreto Telecom is much older than the chamber, right?
Yeah, it's 125 years this year is what we're celebrating. So,
and that's wild to think about a telco existing 1800s.
It was back in the late 1800s, 1897. The postmaster W.H. Wiggerman actually purchased the few telephone lines that existed. And the little white house there in Loreto is where one of the very first offices for the telecom company. And believe it or not, we actually stretched as high as Murray County all the way down into Alabama. That's as big as the service territory was, and there was a lot going on back then. Right. And so, but the way how we exist today is probably a smaller footprint than what it originally started at. But because of the mining that was going on in Iron City and that sort of thing, it required telecommunications, and so that's what happened.
That's crazy interesting. Yeah. So you've been here 3 years now, and that's when SkyBest came in and purchased Loreto Telecom, and at that point also, it was awesome to kind of watch the process from afar, because you could tell SkyBest was going to be a great steward of this century-old family-run business. Yeah. But so tell us a little bit about, one, your role at Loreto Telecom, but then also help us break down, we have SkyBest, and we know that SkyBest is expanding into the greater Lawrenceburg area, but then there's Loreto Telecom too. So tell us, one, about your role, and then two, what that looks like.
So I am the general manager. So I have four supervisors that report to me, and we're very fortunate to be able to make all of the decisions that we know where we want to be able to build. We know the areas that are high on growth, et cetera, but we make all of the decisions locally. And frankly, all of the revenue that we generate is essentially just recommitted back into new investment. So very fortunate to be able to have that opportunity. Most of the decisions, again, like I said, those are primarily all made locally, and typically that's kind of part of what my job is essentially to make the final call. So when we start looking at new service areas or even areas where we want to be able to go into next and that sort of thing, I do work very closely with our contractors, the various tools that we use to be able to look at where we need to go next and that sort of thing, but also participating in potential grant opportunities. We have to maximize the ability to be able to go and essentially rebuild a brand new network, because that's what this is a brand new network. And as far as the Loreto Telecom piece and SkyBest, this goes back to the regulatory days. We are, as a telephone company, very heavily regulated by the FCC. And, even though we started back in 1897, it was kind of everybody can do wherever they want, whatever they want, right? The FCC at some point stepped in and said, you get this area, you get this area. And that's why you have areas where you have AT&T and where you have us and so on.
Right.
And so we're known in that area as an ILEC, or an incumbent local exchange carrier. Outside of that area, companies started to want to stretch out and do business in other areas, and those you had to get a CLEC license, or a competitive local exchange carrier.
Gotcha.
And so we actually run the gamut, because we're owned essentially by a cooperative, a telephone cooperative in North Carolina, and they have a CLEC. And from that CLEC, that's what actually purchased Loreto Telecom.
Gotcha.
But we are an ILEC.
Okay.
So it gets very convoluted and that sort of thing. But when we were looking at getting ready to launch the SkyBest fiber brand in Lawrence County, of course, it's already done in other parts of the state.
Right.
But we wanted to kind of have that separation. We felt like it was going to be best for the consumer to be able to recognize the difference of, do you live in Loreto Telecom area or in Lawrenceburg, that sort of thing. So, and then frankly, from a overall aspect of just kind of keeping, separation, it helps us from a financial standpoint. And also from a bookkeeping standpoint, believe it or not. So there's a lot of different things of keeping that separate. Also budgets, frankly.
Yeah.
One of the things when we launched SkyBest is we did not want our traditional ILEC territory customers to think that we were not going to focus on them anymore. That's absolutely not the case. If anything, what's going to happen is this. The SkyBest fiber brand is going to help us create more revenue to actually overbuild or continue to overbuild our existing ILEC territory. We have to, with anything, of course, any type of business opportunity, you've got to be able to create return on investment.
Right.
And, this will be another way for us to be able to hopefully expedite in conjunction with particular scenarios like grant opportunities and that sort of thing.
So that's interesting. So it's kind of like same company, two great brands, but from my perspective and from economic development perspective, the talk is all about broadband accessibility, and you hear things about 5G, and you hear things about fiber, and then you hear things, like the definition of upload, download, like what is actually broadband internet. And so we're hearing all these things, but again, locally, one company, two great brands, but the same model of infrastructure deployment is what I've seen you guys work on. So talk to us about just the importance of fiber infrastructure.
Well, the reason why fiber is, frankly, the future-proof network is fiber is literally just a piece of glass.
Okay.
Whereas in today's, in traditional networks, it was copper. With copper, you have limitations. You've got loop links, for example. You've got fences going in. Maybe they chip away. There's all different sorts of things that, frankly, just affect a copper network. Whereas you either have a signal or you don't with fiber, because, like I said, it's just literally glass.
Gotcha.
The advantage that it provides versus the traditional copper networks is when you get ready to upgrade that, you swap out the electronics on the end.
Yeah.
And you don't have to just rebuild, which is part of the reason why not only our county, but this issue across the country exists. That's kind of what our mantra is, if you will, is that what we do isn't necessarily just Lawrence County based. This is a problem across our country, the overall digital divide. And actually, if you look at my LinkedIn title, that's what it is working to build broadband across America.
Yeah.
Because in order for us to truly be able to achieve certain levels of success, we're going to have to fix that problem overall. So I also, as part of my role, do work both on the state association side, but assist in the federal associations as well. But fiber, again, advantages is once it's there, it's much easier to upgrade that network in the future.
Yeah, so as the technology changes, you can just keep up with it, right? So it's just an efficiency deal. So, but speaking of efficiency, and also speaking kind of on the state broadband, federal broadband associations type of thing, there's a whole lot of money out there right now. And I think everyone is trying to figure out, what to do with it. But I know that Loreto Tel and SkyBest has taken advantage of some programs that the state has had for a few years, and then now is currently going after more and more. So talk us through how you have leveraged, whether it's the Tennessee Broadband Accessibility Grants and what you've done with that, or the CARES Act emergency. I forgot all the acronyms for those, but
Well, that's the thing is these days, frankly, it's mind-blowing the avenues for money to be able to build broadband. Like you said, the acronyms associated with it.
ARC, USDA, ECD.
Reconnect. So, I've always said that a good telecom company is only as actually good as what their consultant is, because it's really, we rely on those folks a lot to help us be able to make some of the business decisions that we need to. So we have one, and actually we've completed a round 2 Tennessee State Broadband Program Award. Very thankful that we received that. We were also recipients and completed the project out of the CARES grant that Tennessee had, which I would say also that Tennessee, by far, the way that ECD handled that, I would argue that any other state, Tennessee's was the model, just because even though there was a really short time frame to be able to get it all done, we built over 30-something miles and built over $1 million worth of fiber in about a month and a half.
That's unreal.
It is. It's ridiculous. Now, you can't do that these days just because you're not going to get the equipment unless you have it on hand, which is going to be a challenge. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, and then we are also a recipient of a Round 4 Tennessee Broadband Grant Program Award as well. And that's really going to enable us to be able to get a significant part of that ILEC territory that I was talking about earlier, built over the course of the rest of this year and into next year. We continue to, frankly, evaluate every program that comes out, whether or not it's with NTIA or Reconnect. Federal programs are really tough. Of course, anybody that's dealt with a federal program understands and knows that it's very paperwork laden. Believe it or not, that actually could force a company like us to add an additional headcount to just do paperwork. So we have to take all of those sorts of things into consideration. We're very positive and fortunate, again, though, to have a state program. The state program within the next year, they're going to it actually was supposed to start this year, but they're waiting on rules from the Treasury.
I believe they kicked it to the ARP funds, right? Because they're American Rescue Plan, and was it $500 million statewide? Yeah,
next year is going to be $100 million bucket, and hopefully the areas that we can apply for are going to come out early next year.
Cool.
The application window will open, but it's going to be, unfortunately, the time frame for awards were pushed back to June. Now, that creates a little bit of a problem. Because of all the money that's in our industry right now, there's some good actors, there's some bad actors, and there's a significant weight on the supply chains now.
Yeah.
Just as with every industry right now, of course.
Yeah.
But when you throw the T word out there, and I said that yesterday, and they looked at me funny. I'm like, trillion. I mean, that's what we're talking now, whereas 5 years ago, we might be talking maybe $1 million.
Right.
And then it increased to $1 billion and so on. But anyway, when you start talking about that kind of money, it's going to attract all sorts of people and companies and that sort of thing. So there's some challenges up ahead, but there's a lot of opportunity to be able to actually fix this problem. My hope and goal is the folks that are responsible for monitoring the programs are making sure that the networks are being built the way that the taxpayers are expecting it to, because really it's all taxpayer money. Yeah. And that's what we are fiscally responsible for to our members that own us overall, just as we are to, frankly, if we are to win an award, we're, so.
Well, and that's good news. But you used a term a little bit ago, future proof with fiber, right? And that's going to be really important moving forward. But that's also the thing about COVID. COVID caused a lot of this money to be really just brought from the governments, whether it's state, federal, faster. Right. But this problem persisted and existed prior to COVID. And what we saw is that COVID also accelerated the change in our economy. What we were thinking, the remote work trends and all these other things were, 5, 8, 10, 15 years out. It happened overnight, right? And so just the importance of connectivity. When we talk economic development, we've had this discussion, we're as interested in 50 remote workers that may, have to commute to Nashville or Birmingham or wherever, once a week, or if at all, or maybe they work out of New York. We're as interested in 50 of those workers relocating to Lawrence County as we are a 500 job manufacturing facility, because the economy is changing so quickly. So with that said, if I'm a remote worker looking to move to a rural area specifically, because let's be honest, it's a better quality of life, a better pace of life, great schools, great people, and I'm trying to market that to them and say, we're a gig city or we're a gig county, what's your product like? What would you tell that person?
Well, we being able to be connected is not going to be an issue when you cross over the county lines in the future.
That's awesome.
And in a lot of our county, it's not an issue right now.
Yeah.
I actually get asked this question a lot because some of the census blocks that we were awarded in round 2 and even round 4, I get comments from folks that live, let's say, possibly in a more populated census block or area of the county. For example, I get this comment a lot. I can't believe that West Point has fiber and I don't.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for that. Yep. And the reason is because those are the areas that were available during the grant process. Yeah. Ideally, we would build in a more populated area too. That's where your ROI is going to come in, right? Yeah. But believe it or not, you can go down to West Point and get a gig. You can hopefully before the end of this year go down to the southeast portion of the county and get a gig. Using the Big Red Store as a kind of an area locator, if you will. That area is going to be built and capable of getting a gig, and to be able to live in some of the most beautiful parts and rural parts of our county and be able to access that type of network. That's why we do it, partially because, hey, I don't want to live in Nashville, right? I want to be able possibly to go out and experience and let my kids grow up in rural America, et cetera, and be able to still access what the rest of the world can.
That's right.
And, we hear a lot of times, too, in the association side of, well, does that area really need that type of network? Well, why not? E-commerce, school, et cetera. What's the difference between doing it there versus Brentwood?
Yeah.
For example.
Oh, yeah, no, it's been unreal, and the statistics are telling us, more businesses have started post-COVID than ever before. There are more entrepreneurs out there. But on that same vein, internet matters, but I also understand you're an entrepreneur at heart too.
Yeah.
You have another business in Lawrence County, I think in Loreto. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so speaking of COVID, my wife and I bought a wholesale nursery that we named TriStar Wholesale Nursery, and we primarily deal with green plants, tropicals, items that you would typically find indoors. And we closed on it April 1st of 2020, so right in the heart of COVID. It actually worked out great because that was kind of also the time frame. I think so of course the kids, I have 2 boys, and they had gone into spring break and never went back to school. Spring break was in March, so they immediately became employees.
Nice.
So between my wife and my kids, obviously we do have a couple other part-time employees as well, and we do run that. I mean, that's what I do in my free time.
That's awesome. On
the weekends, I take off my Broadband hat and I put on my janitor / landscape / maintenance man hat, so
I don't know how you find the time. I mean it's amazing to hear your knowledge of the industry as far as broadband goes, but you run a business here, and a very vital one as far as infrastructure, economic development goes. You own a business here too, so you run, own, and you live here. And so I want to talk about your experience doing business in Lawrence County, but then your just experience in Lawrence County.
Well, first off, my wife and I, we're not from New York. We're originally from East Texas.
So we call that the reverse Davy Crockett, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I kind of think about it. This might be a little weird, but Davy went to Texas to help.
Yeah.
Maybe I
like it.
Maybe that's a little facetious, but no, I was a huge fan of Davy before, and actually coming and living in an area where it was represented by him in Congress.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you can't make these things up.
Right.
I mean, it's phenomenal. And actually, going through leadership Lawrence County, I learned even more.
Yep.
But that's a separate conversation. But we came here. So moving from the Northeast to Tennessee was almost like moving home.
Yep.
We really do enjoy living here. We have a great business, obviously, that we like to do, and that's the thing is you hear a lot that when you're having fun, it's not really work.
Right.
My kids would say it's work, but I really do enjoy what I do in all aspects. But I feel like we settled in really easy overall, and was able to acquire a business that had a great group of customers and that sort of thing. So. There's a lot to do, obviously, in the county. It's part of the reason why we were attracted to come here in the first place, not just on the business aspect, but to be able to essentially raise our family until they decided what they were going to do before they went on and did whatever with their lives. But having some of the things, too, like the college now, for example, another way to be able to potentially attract them, keep them at home. Even though I tell them all the time when they're 18, they're gone. I still actually love them. They may not feel like that, but I really do love my kids, and I do want them to be around.
Yeah.
And I want them to eventually take over, the business and that sort of thing too. And we bought it with the intentions of doing some expansions and some other things with it. So. And that's kind of part of what I've tried to do over the course of my career, professionally and side, is essentially to leave a legacy for the next group to pick it up, pick that ball up, run with it, and continue to do good things as well.
Well, and you know this as a board member here at the Chamber. One thing we've been talking about this year is discovering opportunity and also next generation talks, right? At our annual meeting this year, that was kind of the thing. We had the video, Discover Opportunity, and that was the idea. We want people to move here. It's not just to move here and like, okay, I'm going to put down roots and do that, but like I'm going to move here, I'm going to grow too, and that's a different conversation, because this is a great place to put down roots, but also you can reach the world from here, and then on the other end of that, next generation type things. We're talking about Gen Zs and actually Gen Alpha at this point too, and that's a whole nother discussion. And then those expectations of what they want in a community are things we're listening to because we're building that out, and that's what we're focused on as a chamber. And fiber it has to be a part of the discussion.
It absolutely does. It's one of the keys to being able to establish the opportunity for those next generations to figure out when they start looking at what's important to them. We don't know exactly what that is today.
Right.
But we do know that connectivity, because those folks have never been disconnected before.
Right.
Unless they go out to certain parts of Crockett Park. right? And we're going to be fixing that issue here before too long as well. But ultimately, we have to be able to check the boxes as to what's going to be able for, or what's going to be important for those that are coming along the lines eventually to be able to replace us. And that's, it's a very humbling job that we get to do because, again, that's leaving something that's hopefully going to be better. And then the next generation comes along and picks it up and makes it even better.
That's right.
So
that's right. Well, we are definitely pioneers here, and so we have a tradition here on Commerce Central where we give you the last word. But I'm going to ask, in response to giving you the last word, is how do I get involved with SkyBest? How do I find out more information?
Yeah. Well, there's two primary ways. If you are in our existing Loreto Telecom service area, LoretoFiber.com. You want to make sure that you have your information in there because that's how we are also looking at data to be able to determine where we're building next. It's the same thing for SkyBestFiber.com.
Gotcha.
If we know that there's a commitment, then that's going to be our commitment. Now, I will say, too, that because a lot of these areas are rural, they're remote, right? Most people knew that when they moved there.
Right.
And so that's what some of the benefit of it is you don't have to worry about neighbors real close. The challenge with that is it may take a little bit longer in order for us to be able to build the amount of folks that, we're going to, unless there's, like I said, another grant opportunity or something like that, which is why West Point has fiber and some other parts of the county don't. So, but those are the primary two ways. If anybody has any questions, obviously they can call up to the office. My email and my cell phone are floating around out there as well, and they're more than, by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to me. But I would just ask for patience because, again, these are brand new networks, new infrastructure, and we also want to make sure that we do it right the first time as well. And you can't just throw some cable up on a pole and expect it to be around for the next 125 years. That's hopefully I'm not here in 125 years, but maybe the plant will be.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, thank you for being with us today on Commerce Central. I hope you check them out at Loreto Fiber and SkyBestFiber.com. We're going to sign off from Commerce Central today. Thanks for joining us.